do the work, you will have a better relationship afterwards. So.
Hi friends, welcome to My Divorce Real Estate. I'm Amber Gifford.
And I'm Scotty Gifford.
So today we're going to talk about something kind of that weighs heavy on my heart for sure. It's not necessarily real estate, but we are all things real estate and divorce because I'm a child of divorce 7 times over and we're a blended family.
Yes.
And so which means we've both been married and divorced once each.
Yes.
So we just want to also say we're not therapists, we're not attorneys. We're sharing information to help you so you can learn from our mistakes and the things that went well.
Yeah, we're always about giving back, and sharing information with others so that maybe we can help them on, help you on your journey, right? We're always reaching back, trying to help the person behind us. So.
Absolutely. So we are big proponents of going to therapy, counseling, no matter what. If you need it, seek help. If you need help, seek help. It doesn't matter if it's from your church. It doesn't matter if it's from a Christian counselor, psychologist, anything, psychiatrist. We are proponents in seeking help if you need it. And a lot of times, more often than not, when people first get divorced, it's ugly and there's strife, and maybe if there isn't, it comes later when new spouses come into play or children grow up and they drive, or I don't know, maybe there's drug addiction in the house with a kid. I mean, just there are problems everywhere. The Lord just says we are gonna have problems.
He promises you that.
Yes. So I think one of the things that we did want to share, and this is kind of more Scotty's personal experience, but I've been in and out of therapy as a child myself, that he did a program.
Yeah, so
Go ahead.
So post divorce, we were kind of fighting. Me and my ex were fighting about the kids, and and obviously both of us saw the kids are getting hurt because of this, and it's not something either of us wanted, obviously, but it was reality, and so we had to deal with the reality of the situation. Was we need to do something different. Is what we have been doing isn't working, and it's getting worse. Communication had gone to a trickle, and led everything was a fight, and so the kids were actually getting hurt way more than me or her. And so, as part of our agreement, was that we were going to do counseling together
In mediation. It was a court kind of order because they agreed, which
yeah.
I know a lot of you might be going, oh, no one's going to tell me to do that. But this is where I wanted to come in and say, even if someone's telling you to do it, you might find benefit in it.
Yeah. So I did think it was a smart thing to do. And looking back at it, has made our relationship with my ex much better. And obviously it's a journey, right? But I think it has definitely taught me a lot. And hopefully, it looks like she's learned a lot too. And so I just want to plug them a little bit. So we were in Harris County. There's obviously other things throughout the state, but they did have a program called the DRO. It's Domestic Relationship Office, and so it really helps parents co-parent better together for the children. Is the big.
So it's cooperative. Show them the book.
So
get a book.
They did even give us a book, which I thought was very helpful, and we did. I loved our counselor. And she was a godsend for sure. And so the book is called Cooperative Parenting and Divorce. And this book, this version is a little bit older. I think there's a newer version out there right now, but it does cover a lot of pretty much all the topics you're going to deal with. And it gives you real life examples, and it gives you things to do. And we actually went through the book, and there's exercises you do on your own. And so there was a lot of hey, where am I being not a good co-parent at, and what do I need to change in myself? It's not about changing the other person, right?
Right.
It's about changing yourself
and what expectations you have in communication, which is always key. Choose to do this, and it's on a sliding scale pay, and I think it's a minimum of 6 sessions. I investigated into it and just doing research before he even got into it to find out about options for stuff. So, if you can't afford a therapist, this is a great program.
This was the DRO was a very effective option as far as money goes, but it was also a very effective results that we got out of the session. So for the dollar for dollar, it was amazing. If you can get in there and use that office, the DRO.
I will say you are there with your ex, and I know everybody's like, I don't want to be with them. I know he felt the same way, and she probably did too. But at the end of the day, it's not really about you changing the other person and you sitting with them. It's important to look at self always. That's where you start, not the other person. Because when you're pointing at someone else, your three fingers pointing back at you.
Yeah, and so I think it was a really good
eye opener
for both of us to see. Okay, well, where am I contributing? What words am I using that's hurting the other side, which then is hurting the children, right?
Yeah,
that's really what.
What it's about.
They cared about, and what we ultimately cared about. But it was like we were just passing each other, right? Not seeing eye to eye and fighting over stupid stuff. And so I think
it's about hurting the kids, which is where my heart always is. It's about the kids, and that's what fuels most of the anger in most situations. Even in my own divorce, like, it's hurting the kids. But what I've learned is that you cannot control the other person at all.
Nope.
And you can only control yourself and how you react. And being a child of divorce, I went through a lot of things that I swore I would never do when I got a divorce because it hurt as a kid. And even the counselor that we were at said, we need to listen to Amber because she knows, because she knew what hurt her. So I was very adamant. I'm not going to say I was perfect. I wasn't by any means. I mean, I did things that hurt him. I rolled my eyes. Oh, what a jerk, blah, blah, blah. Stuff like that. It hurts your kids. But one of my favorite things in the book, because Scotty would come home and tell me about the meetings and what he learned from it. And my favorite thing is this little thing called divorce rules that you hang up in your house, and it's great to go over with your kids. Like, hey, if I'm doing any of these things on this sheet, I need you to tell me. And that way they learn to be advocates for what hurts them too, because a lot of kids don't say anything. And especially if they're real compliant children, they'll hold it in, and like it just digs at them. And then you're going to end up having an issue later because they're internalizing whatever it is that hurt, and they cannot communicate about it. So open communication always. I always say, hey, if I did something that hurt you, I need you to tell me because I need to ask for forgiveness. Right?
Yeah. And so there's a lot of great stuff in this book, but we're going to just focus on this video
divorce
for the
rules.
divorce rules because that was really great.
So it's a letter basically, dear mom and dad, I'm just a kid, so please. And I just circled 6 of them. I like a lot of them, but 6 of them mean a lot to me. Number 1 was, do not talk badly about my other parent. This makes me feel torn apart. It also makes me feel bad about myself. I think people forget.
Yeah, they're half the other spouse, right?
Yeah. So if you hate them, you must hate half of me.
Yeah, and that's gonna be hard. Like I just saying that, just shivers down me.
Me too. It makes me feel sick.
So
and it is so easy to talk bad about the other person when you're angry. It's so hard to say something positive when you're angry. But at the end of the day, I've always went back to, he loves you. He will never stop loving you. And sometimes parents, we make mistakes. I really, really worked hard at not letting a demise of a relationship because of me, because my parents did that, and I was like, I'm not doing that, and if it's going to demise, it's on him.
Yeah, that's a good one.
Okay, so another one is, do not talk about money or child support. This makes me feel guilty or like I'm a possession instead of your child. I hear a lot of times, and I never well, there's been things that have been said for sure, but a lot of people say, well, he's not paying me and he doesn't get to see the kids, and they don't need to know about financial worries or woes. And who's paying. You don't get to see your kid because you pay.
Yeah, so there's two things on that. Like first, the child support is a separate issue as far as visitation rights, and you don't just because they're not paying child support doesn't mean that they don't get the rights to see them. Although I will. We get it. Advocate that you should, if you agreed to do something, or if your court ordered to do something, you should do it. Right? So, to this, and the second point would be like, I think you said like you're not a possession, right? So it's like, it's really to feel that like you're getting money because of me to the other person. It just feels somewhat,
And I feel like when you say, well, I'm saying he only because I'm a female, but when your dad's not paying me money, I feel like that's your one up. Like you're going to like me better and you're going to think he's a loser because he doesn't pay me. They do not need to know anything about what he is or isn't doing. Because trust me, they can figure it out on their own. Just takes time. Whether it's him or her or mom or dad, they will figure it out eventually, but it's not your job to tell them.
Yeah, it feels like it's another jab at the other person. Yes, when you're saying, well, they're not doing this thing that they were ordered to do, right? Which maybe so. Maybe so. But at the end of the day, it's really not for the kids. You guys didn't have a discussion with the kids when you decided this. It had nothing to do with them. The kids aren't really involved in that. So.
No. Another one I like is, do not argue in front of me or on the phone when I can hear you. This makes my stomach turn inside out.
Yeah, I mean, I could speak. My parents never divorced, but I hated it when they fought. Like I hated it, and I always tried to get in the middle, and that's part of me is still trying to be that kid that like, hey, y'all just stop fighting. Like, and I don't like seeing people fight at all, and I usually try to step in between most people, stop that. But like, Amber.
Yeah, this one, I mean, if you're used to arguing with your ex when you were married, you probably continued on, but like you really got to hold it back. Your kids don't want to see that. It hurts them so bad. I've been in situations where they've run in between my ex and I, stop it. I mean, it's just damaging. We've been in a situation too where his kids were listening. And like I said in another video, if you're the one talking the smack, you're the one that's going to pay for it later. It ruins validity, trust. It's so many things when you hear your parent who you love talk about your other parent whom you love just as much. Mm-hmm. It just deteriorates and you look at them kind of disgustingly. And as you get to be an adult, you may not happen as a child, but as an adult, you're like, wow, gee, thanks for talking about my mom that way. I think you're kind of a jerk for doing that.
Yeah, and I think too, like the fighting in front of them, like I know when we were really heated at one point, like my youngest son came up to me afterwards when I kind of had to walk away because it gotten so bad. He came running after me, and he came up to me and he goes, we hadn't divorced yet, and he's like, so is this why you guys are getting a divorce? And it just, my heart just sank, and I was like, yes. Like I had to be truthful in that moment, but it was so hard to, like, I didn't want him to see that, right? That's not hurtful. What I want to see. So
yeah, like, and I said in another video too, like every eye roll, it hurts them. You got to be on your best behavior, and your relationship with them will be better because of it. I mean to say, my mom never talked bad about my dad. I never knew that he did all those bad things. I've heard people say that, so that's important. Another one is do let me take items to my other home as long as I can carry them back and forth. Otherwise, it feels like you're treating me like a possession. I have always said, when you go home to your dad's, I call his house home, not I'm your only home. It's really important for them to see you recognize that's their home too, not just here. Because again, it makes them feel like possession. And I don't care what they have, where it goes. Obviously, if we have two of the same thing, like, hey, that doesn't need to go over there, or we need whatever. But like, it's their stuff. That's what makes them feel safe. Let them take it. If you don't get something back, I mean, is it going to matter in a year? No. If you need it, you're going to have to go get it or make a special trip or whatever the case may be. Let them have their things wherever they are.
Yeah, it's like I don't wear the kids' clothes when they're not here, so if they need to take them, right? So
yeah, and if you don't, I mean, I've had people say to you, well, I need the hangers back. I'm like, let me just ship you a box of Amazon hangers. It is not a big deal. Like, it's just like nitpicky. Don't do that. Don't let the kids know that you're ticked off you didn't get something back either. Like, I've had a client too where she paid for everything and it never came back. That's hard. There are circumstances it is hard, and you want to tell them it might be better to say, hey, listen, let's take these older shoes over to daddy's house instead of your brand new ones in case they don't come back and you don't remember to bring them back. Not your dad didn't give them back to me, but let's take the older stuff, and that way if you forget them, you still have your new shoes for school. I mean, there are ways around it.
Yeah, I think reframing it to be like, hey, and I think it teaches the kids responsibility at a very early age. If you really want something, then you're responsible for taking it and bringing it back. And so if you forget something, if you don't live close by, well then, okay, well you should remember that next time. You'll know that, because I've had kids throw a fit about leaving something. I'm like, well,
too bad.
You knew when you were going. You knew when you were coming.
Obviously, that's age appropriate too. I mean, a kindergartner's not going to remember, but
we expect your kindergartner.
No, but we always, like, when it's the day before they go, hey, let's circle around the house, clean up whatever's yours, anything you want to take or anything you want to leave. Let's get it all situated to make that effort to do so, because it just doesn't make sense to like rush back over. Like, it's okay for kids to forget stuff. I guarantee you, they forget enough, they're gonna remember one day.
Yeah, it's a lesson learned there.
And the kid says, it doesn't matter how much I spend there. It is two homes. It's their mom's home, their dad's home, and it's theirs. And you have to acknowledge that. But that's important to say, acknowledge both homes. Also, the last one is do not let me love both of you and see each of you as much as possible. Be flexible even when it's not part of our regular schedule. This one is huge to
Oh
me.
yeah, this is probably a big one where a lot of fights happen over it.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, my ex and I have always been flexible. I didn't even ever do a take back weekend, which is in the decree typically. Summer possession, you can, I don't care. You want to be with your kids? I'm totally cool with it. I used my free time as time to fulfill me with what I needed so I could be a better mom. Maybe I needed more sleep. Maybe I needed to exercise more. Maybe I wanted to pour into my Bible. Maybe I wanted to go to a class. Like, I'm not going to say it didn't suck times when I didn't have them, but I did use my free time to feed myself and to make connections with friends and other people and do things that I wanted to do. And I was fine. You want to take him? I'm good with it. You can't come today? Okay, fine, no problem. Like, I've always been flexible because I feel like if I'm flexible, it teaches them, hey, mom is willing to do whatever it takes.
Yeah, and I think that's an important life lesson too, learning to be flexible because things don't always go as we have them
Oh my
planned
God, they
out,
never
right?
do.
Problem tracking.
Yeah, that's how we feel. And I just think it's really important.
But I think that did lead to a lot of fighting with me and my ex when, hey, well, the decree says, the decree says, and it's like, well, okay.
Or telling the kids, well, the decree says you have to be home at this time. I just want to but the decree should not be spoken to the children ever. It's like, it doesn't matter.
To them, it's their life.
Yes.
It's not just, okay, I'm over here and I'm over there. They're just living their life, right?
Yes.
And trying to cope with the situation as best they can. And you guys fighting about them as possessions, like, oh, it's my baby doll, right? And ripping it, right?
No, it's my day. I have to have them.
Yeah. So being flexible goes a long way because at some point you're probably, if they had asked something and you go, no, that's not the part. At some point, you're probably going to have an ask, and they're going to turn around and they're not going to be as flexible either. So the flexibility goes both ways. I think is learning to.
And it makes it so much better. Growing up, my parents were married and divorced 4 times each, and with my own father, though, they never followed a decree, never. And I don't even remember a word ever being mentioned about it, to be honest. It was like, oh, you're going to dad's. Oh, you're going. I mean, I didn't even. Ours was so lackadaisical. I was like, where am I going today? And they had a really nasty fighting up until about 3rd grade, maybe 4th grade. But they never followed anything, and both my parents were self-employed, so it just kind of like whatever worked. And that's kind of what I went by too. I followed the schedule with my ex, but I was like, whatever works that works for the children and helps each other out, because he's right. There's going to come a day when you need help with something, or you want to switch because you want to go somewhere, because let's be real, not all weekends pan out on your weekend. Not your girls' trip.
Well, I think to that thought too, one that I want to share too is, remember, the decree is supposed to be rules we live by when we're fighting, not necessarily the rules we live and die by when we're getting along, right? So the decree is kind of a fallback, and that's what you always need to remember as, okay, we're going to follow a decree if we're fighting, but as long as we're not fighting and we're working on our communication, right, then we should be able to have that flexibility. And if the kids have something else that's going on, or you have something else that's going on, you're going to say, hey, like, let's switch these days up or switch weekends, and because it works better for X, Y, or Z, So
Right.
I think that's where
we do realize too, not all families can do that. It has to be decree, decree, decree right down the line all the time. So we're not negating the fact that it's so easy.
You should stick to it as much as possible. And I'm just showing that you should have a little bit of flexibility on your side.
I mean, some people get along great. Some people want to kill each other. I mean, I do hope and pray that everyone who's watching that is in a toxic, negative, bad situation, that you guys can come together eventually. I do think over time, the emotions change, and if you work on yourself and you really forgive yourself and the other person, you're able to move forward much easier, and then the tension is lowered, right?
Yeah, and I think that's what this book is really about, is helping, giving you tools and things to live by so that you can work on yourself, right? Because this book is not to, I want to bash her with it, right? You didn't listen to the book. No, the book is like, oh, I need to bash myself with it a little bit. Like, hey, what have I been doing wrong? But like, it's a guide. It's a guide to being a better co-parent, right? Is the idea. And so I'll try to maybe find this book online and put a link down below too for it. So having this is, I think, is a great resource. Maybe it's not your only resource, but it's at least a good resource that I found. We did. If you do the work, there's a lot of exercises to do in this book. If you actually do the work, you will have a better relationship afterwards. So
I think every county has a DRO, actually.
well,
So,
I don't
but
know.
you can look it up. I think so. They do, because I know it's in other states too. So anyway, we're here to bring you real life experiences to not only real estate, but real life.
Needs.
You can also remarry someone better. No, I'm just kidding. I'm just kidding. I'm just kidding. You can take that out.
That's fine.